Hello, and welcome to another Geek Bang video review. Today's topic, if you couldn't work it out already, is the Hot Toys MMS537 Tony Stark team suit, also known as the Quantum suit, from Avengers Endgame. Now, not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited for this guy, mainly because this is my first time getting a first batch figure. Normally I have to wait 2 or 3 months until I get my hands on it, by which point I've seen 1,000 photos, but this guy's only been out for about 5 days, and I've already got him with me, which has just hyped me like crazy, but I'll try not let that influence me while I'm doing the review. What we'll do is we'll go through the box, go through everything he comes with, then we'll do the figure himself along with all of his posability, then we'll talk about his accessories, and then if you stick around towards the end, I will be doing some comparisons with him and some other figures, as well as giving my final thoughts. Okay, so starting off with the box design, as you can see, the design isn't actually of Tony Stark himself, it is of the Quantum suit, which I guess makes sense because in the scene they all wear it, so maybe they wanted to make the box sort of consistent in case they decided to make more, but obviously as we know so far, they haven't. In the middle though, we do have a arc reactor, which obviously is very reminiscent of Stark himself. Down at the bottom you've got his name, and then up at the top you have Avengers Endgame. All the red sections on this are a really nice heavy gloss. The silvery sections are just sort of your standard matted cardboardy surface. But interestingly enough, the black sections down in the corners and up at the top in the middle, they seem to be, I can't really quite describe it. They're this rougher, more matted, it's almost like a very fine sandpaper feel. So that's a bit different, and I don't think I felt that on a box before. But yeah, it's nice. It's different from the normal thing of having the sort of character themselves on the box. It's a bit more abstract, and you know what? I like it. It's a bit designer. Then coming around to the side, we've got the exact same sort of design and pattern coming around, except we've got Tony Stark, all the specifications written up the side, with a very small Avengers logo just down at the bottom, but nothing very different here. Then coming around to the back, you've got this big glossy red box, and inside are all your lovely warnings and sort of legal specifications and things that might need to go on a box. They go here, this is where they go, feel free to read them, you know. You can if you want to, I personally don't, but yeah, they're there, so enjoy that. But other than that, it's the same design following around. And then just coming around to the other side, it is the same as it is on the other side. So again, Tony Stark, same design, and you've got your little Avengers logo down at the bottom. So, seeing as the packaging itself, this main thing that you're seeing was a slip over the main box, what I've done is I've just taken it off to give you a little look at what it's like underneath. So obviously from the front you can see this big see-through window through which we actually see the figure himself. Nothing too exciting here, except obviously for the figure. And down in the corner you've got a little arc reactor, because at the end of the day, this is Tony Stark. Then on the side you've just got your sort of black and white, very simplistic design, nothing too fancy. And then when you come back round to the back, you've got this really nice Avengers logo, which I'm really liking. It's got this sort of quantum suit design running through, which I think is quite cool. And then down at the bottom of that, you've got your cast and crew. For those of you who don't know, these are just a handful of the people who helped you bring these amazing figures to us. So if you're interested in who has a hand in that, there you go, they're right there. And then coming around to the other side, again, same design as the other side, nothing too fancy. Okay, so here he is, fresh out of the box, in person. Straight off the bat, I'm liking the look of this. I know the design is something that not a lot of people are very keen on. I think people have called it basic, or they've just said it's not for them. I kind of understand what you mean, because in terms of Marvel, this is a very different design. Normally they don't go anywhere near this sort of color palette, the whole sort of body jumpsuit thing. It's not a typical Marvel look, but at the same time, I do like it because this isn't, you know, your standard battle armor or something you'd wear in a final fight. This is typically and strictly a time travel suit. It's not designed for battle, it is designed for almost science. And from that perspective, I really like it. It does look very scientific, it does look very sort of explorative. You've got the sort of, I wouldn't actually call it a white. I know in a lot of Hot Toys final pictures and in the promo pictures, all the sections across his body, they came across as more of like a white or a slightly off-white. In hand, I would have to say they are more of a light grey than I expected, which isn't a problem. It's just, I was expecting it to be a bit lighter, but that's fine. The red sections, just looking around, they look really glossy and really vibrant. Like, they really stand out from the grey and the black, which are much more matted colours. So, you know, there's that hint of Marvel colouring really popping throughout the suit. Seeing a lot of detail, but what we'll do is we'll take a very quick, we'll take a close-up look at him, see what he's got going on, and then we will move on with it. But yeah, so there's just a very quick overview of him fresh out of the box. So, going in with a close-up on the head sculpt, I think obviously it's safe to say the Tony Stark head sculpt is kind of the centerpiece of this suit, seeing as the rest of the suit is somewhat generic in the sense that the whole team wears their own sort of iteration of it. So the only thing that really singles this out to each character is obviously the head sculpt. And this one, this is gorgeous. This really, really is amazing. Like, if you've been collecting Hot Toys for a while, or even if you're new to it, it's probably common knowledge we've had our fair share of Tony Stark head sculpts. And this one is, in terms of from Hot Toys, in my opinion, this one is one of the best we've had. I'm loving that you can see there's like the little grey paints going on down the side to sort of show the aging, all the detail in the actual hair sculpt itself. You can see in the face itself, you've got the gloss on the eyes, you've got the detail of the wrinkles, the sort of the facial hair. The paint application is honestly stunning. They've got his skin tone just right. I think this, I'm not 100% sure, but I think this might be the same head sculpt as the one we got with the Mark 50. I know obviously it's definitely not the same that we got with the Mark 85, just because of a lot of reasons, when obviously I don't think Hot Toys are going to use that one again. But this, it looks like it could be very similar to the Mark 50, if not the same head sculpt as it, just with a different paint application. And to be honest, it works for me. Like, I know in the film his hair was more brushed over and less sort of spiked on top, but the fact that they've added those bits of greys, I think they've maybe enhanced the wrinkling around the face a little bit more. It does work. It looks very accurate. It's without a doubt Tony Stark, and it just looks very natural on the body as well. The head isn't too high up or sort of too low down. It's very, very realistic, and on the shelf it is absolutely stunning. And this is actually my first Tony Stark that I own not in an Iron Man suit, so I'm very happy that this is how he came out. As for the body, you can really, really see a lot of the detail that is going on in the suit right now. And I think, to be honest, from a distance, it actually isn't that obvious, mainly because the colour scheme, it's not the most sort of diverse. They really do stick to sort of like the 3 or 4 colours, and that's about it. But when you get up really close, you can see that they are really detailed. And there's all these like intricate lines sort of running through the suit, and they are incredibly crisp lines. They aren't wavy, they're not baggy on the suit or anything. They're extremely, extremely sharp. You can see all over across the biceps, on the arms again. They do actually have a break in the material from the bicep to the forearm, which I think contributes to the articulation, but we'll see about that in a minute. And then when you come across the back, again, you've got all this sort of extra detailing on the back. It is all 3D, I should say, as well. So it seems like the undermost layer is probably the red, on top of which is then the dark sort of grey, the sort of almost black. And then over the top of that, we have this sort of light grey. So if you're looking for like what the layers do, that's how they go. But each individual layer also has its really nice sort of addition of very fine texturing. None of them are completely smooth surfaces. They all have an element of sort of stippling to them just to make them a little bit more rough looking. And then every now and then you do get the odd dotting of silver. As you can see, you've got the silver sections on the waist, which just break it up a bit and make it look a bit more metal, and they do look very metallic. And as you come around to the front, you can see there is that really nice sort of sharp Avengers logo on the chest, and there are just a couple of finer details around there to sort of contribute to the fact that this is a tech suit. Again, it's not a jumpsuit. And then moving on to the legs, it is the exact same suit spanning down. There are no breaks in the suit at the waist or anything like that, and the sort of same design continues really. So you've got your blacks, you've got your greys, you've got your reds, all sort of intricately spanning around him in a different manner. It's all very angular, I should say, with this suit. There don't seem to be many sort of curved lines. It's all very angular, sharp lines, which I like, actually. It's sort of, you know, it's a theme to go with, and the fact that they've stuck with it, I like. They haven't just randomly gone with like really sort of flowing lines on the legs, but everything else be sharp. It does look like the sections around the calves, like the lower part of the leg, it does look like a separate section. I'm not sure. And then obviously you can see it connects down into the boots, which are obviously a separate piece. They are not one. But yeah, I'll just let that go around a little bit more, just sort of so that you see properly the legs and everything. I should say the proportions on this, and it's not just the legs, the whole thing, the proportions on everything are pretty much spot on as far as I can see. I'm not, you know, looking at it thinking, oh, the arms are too big or anything like that. He's bulky, but then I think in these suits, they all looked rather muscular. And so realistically, his stature, his size, his ratios, they're all pretty much spot on. So you don't need to worry about anything being out of proportion or looking funny. Alright, articulation time. So, going to start off with the head. First thing to note, the head and the neck on this guy are one piece. You do not have that joint at the top of the neck. However, the whole head moves together, so you've got, I think it's on a ball joint, so you've got your 360 all the way around if you want to do an exorcist with him, you know, each to his own. And you do have just a smidge of sort of up and down motion in the head there. Coming into the shoulders, I'd say you've got maybe 45, 55 degree angle going upwards, and there is just the slightest little swivel there where you can sort of move it forwards and backwards. But I'm already noticing that the material is a bit restricting. In the elbow, there is a double joint. I'd say you can get it to about the 90 degree mark. Pretty much, I wouldn't want to go any further because, again, the material, it's seeming quite tight. And as I just straighten out the elbow, you can already see a couple of sort of... actually, you know what? No, a couple of lines haven't really just appeared. I was actually expecting it to crease more, and it hasn't. So that's a plus. And then coming down to the elbow, you've... not the elbow, sorry. The wrist, you've got your standard sort of wrist peg joint. So you get the 360 motion on it if you want, as well as a little bit forwards and backwards. But one thing to note, this glove, it's molded to a different shape with the wrist. So it does restrict it just a little bit, where the gloves, sort of where the gloves cutoff point, it actually lines the wrist perfectly. And because it's not a perfectly straight line, it locks it in a little bit. But that's not the end of the world. Coming into the body, we have 2 points of articulation, one in the sort of mid-torso, one down right by the waist. Each of these you can get a bit of crunch forward, a little bit of crunch backwards there, and then each one will allow for a little bit of swivel. But again, this suit is seeming very tight. I'm not sensing a lot of sort of elasticity from it, so I would recommend not pushing him too far there. Coming into the leg, again, I can already hear the sort of rubber of it going as I try to move the leg forwards and backwards. It's pretty restricted. I'd say you're not even getting 45 degrees going forwards, and then backwards, you're pretty much not getting anything. So that's not ideal. Coming outwards from the waist, you do get a little bit of outwards, so you can probably get about 45 degrees, and then down in the knee, you've got your double joint again. That will go past the 90 degree mark, which again is sort of, for me personally, the 90 degrees is the bare minimum that I want from these figures. So elbows and knees, 90 degree mark, that's always what I say. Although having just done that, there is instantly creasing in the back of the knee. So that is a point to watch out for. Coming down to the ankle, you've got your little bit of forwards, you've got your backwards. I think it's on a ball joint, so you should get a pretty free range of motion. You can go side to side with it, you know, get an overall bit of swivel. Obviously, I've only done one arm and one leg on each side, but they are obviously symmetrical, so they're the same on both sides. Honestly, the suit itself doesn't have the best articulation just from the looks of things, but I understand that this isn't exactly a dynamic outfit. We never see them sort of jumping around in, you know, fire and explosions wearing this suit. It's much more of a, even in the film, they're all just sort of stood pretty much museum posed. And I understand that, again, it's a tight-fitted outfit, and it's unfortunately, it's not like a Spider-Man suit where it can just be that sort of spandex-looking thing. This does have to be considerably more durable-looking. The material itself is probably a slight, I would describe it as rubbery, hence why I think the articulation, it's just not really doing the trick. So my warning on that one with the articulation, not great, personally, but not the end of the world. For me, I'll most likely be posing him in a relatively chill stance, so I'm not too fussed about that. But if you are somebody that specifically always does dynamic poses, maybe think about going in a different direction, purely because this suit is heavily restricting. But yeah, so that's the figure out of the way. Now we'll go on to his accessories, and straight off the bat, I am noticing... Yeah, I say accessories, I should really be saying what they're lack of. He doesn't really come with a lot, not gonna lie, there's very few things in the box, but then to be fair, I guess that did kind of shine in his price a little bit. At least this isn't a figure where you pay through the nose and get nothing. As far as Hot Toys figures go, this guy isn't exactly expensive, and so I would say you're more likely than not getting your money's worth, but we'll take a little close-up look at everything as it comes, and then we'll sort of maybe make some more decisions if they should have included anything else at the end. Right, I'll get the boring things out of the way first. Obviously, the first thing is instructions. Every Hot Toys will come with these. Please, please, please give them a read. I know it's boring. I know it's fun when you get your new figure, you get out of the box and you just want to play with it. You want to put it on the case or whatever. But unfortunately, I've seen far too many collectors who have damaged their figure or whatever because the instructions weren't read or they just weren't careful enough. So sometimes these things have useful information in them. I would highly recommend just giving it a once over, just so you fully understand what your figure can and can't do. Believe me, these things are worth enough money. Don't risk it, alright? Then he comes with his standard extra wrist pegs. Obviously, these are quite a delicate part of any Hot Toys, and so they can break from time to time, but thankfully Hot Toys include an extra couple for us, which I appreciate. Moving on to the hands, the figure only actually comes with 4 individual hands. That's 2 pairs. This is a really small amount of hands, considering what you get with most Hot Toys figures. Even like a really basic one normally comes with more than this. But then, like I said, these figures, you know, the suit didn't get a crazy amount of screen time. And so when you think about it, it's not like the hands did any sort of iconic gestures or anything. So I guess a relaxed pair and a fisted pair, it's not exactly like we've been ripped off here, but I would have ideally liked maybe something a bit more exciting. Maybe a hand that's got like a holding grip in case you've got other accessories from other figures. You want to show your figure holding something. That would have been really cool. So in terms of hands, you're pretty light on this one, but I guess it kind of gets the job done. But you can see, if I'll just get one of them now, you can see you've got that really nice stippled red effect going across the back of the hand, very shiny, very metallic looking, and it really pops against the matted black, which does have some very fine details, especially across the knuckles there, just to make it look like it is a glove. It's not just a plain sort of black sculpt. Then obviously in all of the left hands you do have your actual quantum time travel sort of GPS navigator, I think Stark called it, embedded in the right hands. This isn't actually part of the sculpt. This is a separate piece which is embedded in it. So if you wanted to, you could probably dig it out, but that would leave you with a big hole in your hand. So personally, I'm gonna leave it be. Okay, so here we have his base that he comes with. This is your standard Avengers sort of shape and style base. The only difference is obviously the design on top. For this one, you've got the sort of really nice Avengers A. It's got the quantum suit design running through it. I do believe this is the same design that we saw on the back of the box earlier, just printed obviously smaller onto the base. Looks really nice. I love the sort of vibrant blue that they've put onto it to sort of mimic the actual time machine itself and going through the sort of quantum vortex. Looks really nice. It's very eye-catching. It's very vibrant, and I like it. There is also a glossed A, like an Avengers A, over the top of it, as well as the Avengers Endgame logo itself being in gloss. Then down at the front, it just says Tony Stark. This is printed on. They haven't given us the sort of silver nameplate that we sometimes get. Personally, I don't gripe too hard about that one. I don't mind if it has either. All I ever ask is that they are consistent with it. So if this one has it printed, I want all the Endgame ones to be printed, and so far I think they have been. I just don't like it sometimes. You get it, they're halfway through a franchise and they decide to change it from one to the other, and I'm like, keep it consistent, because, you know, we're going to be displaying them together. Then for the actual stands sort of, I guess, yeah, for the actual stand sort of holder section, you have a sort of standard run-of-the-mill crotch grabber. It doesn't come with a dynamic pose pole or anything like that, but again, this isn't exactly a dynamic figure. It's not going to be in any crazy poses. Typically, they were in a museum stance, and with the restrictions of the material, I wouldn't want to try it anyway. So you know what? This does the job. As long as it holds him stood up, I'm not really complaining too hard about that. Okay, and here we have the head sculpt for Tony Stark helmeted this time. So this is with the helmet on, just as he is about to travel through time. I really like the design. One thing that's interesting is the design for these helmets. It is pretty much Ant-Man's helmet. For those of you who know what I mean, the newest release of Ant-Man, the one that we got for Ant-Man and Wasp, it's almost the same design, just with a different color scheme. I think the visor might be a little bit bigger and all that, but generally they followed his design scheme, and I get that, because at the end of the day, they're using his tech and his sort of suit style to travel through time. So yeah, that makes sense. The paint application on this is gorgeous. Honestly, all of those black lines running through it, they are so crisp. I'm not seeing a single line or feature out of place. And then if the main feature is the eyes looking through the visor. The visor, it's not completely see-through. There is a slightly blue tint to it, but it doesn't obscure your vision of the head sculpt underneath. And obviously the head sculpt underneath, it's looking really good. Even just being able to see the eyes, you can tell it's supposed to be Tony Stark in there. And I love that. So overall, this is really nice. And to be honest, as much as I like the Tony Stark head sculpt that we've seen already, I'm really tempted. I do think I'll be displaying him with this. One thing to say is this does have a light up feature. It does open up at the back and you can put batteries in. And what they will do is they will cast just a slight light over the eyes inside the visor. I personally don't put the batteries into my figures because I've just had one figure too many get damaged from the batteries leaking, or that it's killed the bulb and it's short circuited. It's just a lot of hassle and I like to look after these things. So I personally won't be putting the batteries in, but there's plenty of pictures out there, so feel free, check it, go onto Instagram and stuff. People have it all over the place with the lights on. And yeah, here's just the batteries that would be going into the helmet if I was putting them in. As you can see, there's just 3 of them in there. Hot Toys don't typically include spares, so I'm going to assume all 3 go in at once. Nothing too fancy, it's your standard thing, similar size to what you'd put in most Iron Man figures, but yep, there you go, those are included. And moving on to the final accessory piece, we have the battle-damaged Mark 50 helmet. For those of you who don't remember, this is what Tony is using in the opening scene of Avengers Endgame to sort of send his farewell message to Pepper when he thinks he is dying. This is honestly, it's a very iconic accessory because obviously it's from such a emotional, heartfelt scene, and I love the fact that we've got it in a 1/6 scale as an accessory. My only question here is, why is it coming with the quantum suit, Tony? Because at no point does he interact with this accessory, so I'm not 100% sure why they've given it to us. This isn't like a special edition inclusion, they all come with this, so a little bit confused by that, why Hot Toys thought, yep, of all the figures, let's put it with that one. That being said, the paint application and the detail on this accessory, it is phenomenal. You can really see all the fine lines, the detail running through the sort of mechanical section at the front. Then you've also got all these like battle damaged and weathering scars. You've got the dents all over the helmet. This is very, very accurate to the film. I love that they've included this. I do not think I will display it with my Quantum Suit Tony because it just doesn't fit him. I may put it with another Iron Man or another Tony Stark figure. But all in all, that is gorgeous. And I'm just seeing now as I look through it, it does have the transparent lenses for the eye holes. So really nice accessory. Just kind of questioning why it was included with this guy specifically, if that makes sense. Part of me's kind of wondering if Hot Toys were just trying to think of anything to include, seeing as he's already quite sparse with accessories. Okay, so to summarize on the accessories just very quickly, I think we're all aware just from watching and seeing, he is very sparse on things he comes with. He doesn't come with a lot. And one of the main accessories he comes with, as I've already said, I think it was a bit unnecessary. I'm happy we got it. But I think the Mark 50 helmet doesn't make a lot of sense with this figure, and it seems like Hot Toys were just trying to think of things to include so that they didn't pretty much give us nothing. That being said, so far we haven't received any other team members with the Quantum suit, and if it looks like this is the only one we're going to receive, I would have actually loved it if they had included multiple head sculpts of different characters so that you could decide who was wearing the suit. I'm aware not all of them have this body shape, but you could swap it out. You could put a Captain America on, you could put a Hawkeye on, you could put Ant-Man on, just to provide us a little bit of options. And then I think more people would have actually bought the figure as well, because they would have bought like 4 each, so they could have them all like that. But I've already been seeing a few people swapping out the headpiece, swapping out the head sculpt, so they can just put another character in it themselves, which I get you can do, but I think Hot Toys, you really should have given us something to just add a bit of diversity. But I do understand this was advertised as Tony Stark, not just Team Suit. And that being said, in place of the Mark 50 head sculpt, which like I said, I'm glad we got it. But one of the main things that I thought he should have come with is like a Tesseract or something. That was his time stone. That was he himself had to go and retrieve that one with Steve Rogers, and they had to come back with it. So I'm really curious why he hasn't come with a Tesseract or something. I thought that was his time stone to retrieve, would have made sense to give it to him. Maybe some sort of small pin particles or something just to add on, because right now it does feel like we haven't got much with the figure so far. And I think Hot Toys, had they put a little bit more thought into it, there were definitely alternative things that we could have included. But I won't hash on too hard about that because I think a fair few people have voiced their opinions there. Comparison time! Okay, so first comparison we're going to do is essentially Tony Stark with himself. What I've done is I've put him next to the Mark 85, which is obviously the Iron Man suit that he wears in Avengers Endgame, aka the same film that this suit is from. Obviously, the very first thing you notice is pretty obvious. The Iron Man suit is considerably taller. I think it makes sense. I think everyone is aware at this point when Tony puts on the suit, he does gain a fair bit of height. I'm not gonna lie, I do kind of look at the two and think, how on earth does he go inside that? Because it seems a little bit too tall for him, but I guess, I'm sure it's the mechanism, it's artistic license with Marvel to an extent. I'm guessing he must just get that much taller in this suit, because the suit seems to be the same height as like the Thors and the Captain Americas, and they are all on par in the films, but naturally Tony Stark is considerably smaller out of it, so in terms of ratio it's probably about right. I just can't help but look at this and think, how on earth is he supposed to fit in that suit? It's way bigger than him. But no, yeah, that's just me being me. But in terms of actual look, it's probably about in proportion to each other. They do look very cool together, but I'm sure I will keep him displayed separately just because I've got my Iron Man in one section and I'll most likely have my Tony Stark in another area. Then for another rather dramatic height difference, just going in the other direction this time, we now have him next to the Natasha Romanoff Black Widow from Avengers Endgame again. As you can see here now, it is the Black Widow. She is considerably shorter than he is. This, I think, is pretty much spot on in the ratio. Everyone is aware that Scarlett Johansson, as an actress, is on the shorter side, and so I think it makes sense. I do think Hot Toys sometimes take her height to a bit of an extreme with this one, because I know she's a lot shorter than many of the other female figures that we've received, but for all I know, this could actually be the ratio. Maybe she's just even smaller than we realise. But in terms of like build and everything, they look pretty much spot on next to each other. And as you can see, obviously it's two jumpsuit characters here, except one is all black, one is almost white, just with the light grey. But I quite like the contrast between these two, if anything. And I would have loved it if we had got, a female quantum suit body, so we could have at least put like a Black Widow or a Nebula head sculpt on them, just so we could have maybe had a pair or something. I think that would have looked really cool. But who knows? Maybe Hot Toys will do that for us in the future one day. Fingers crossed. Next up is Tony Stark next to the Steve Rogers. I'm calling him Steve Rogers because obviously this is when he wasn't sort of going by the mantle of Captain America. But looking at this, I would definitely say the height ratios are pretty much on point here. Obviously I'm using the Infinity War version of him because I do not yet have the Endgame version, but I'm really hoping to get it soon because it looks awesome. But yeah, just for the comparison of the two figures, you can see again, Captain America, Steve Rogers, whatever you want to call him for this figure, is a lot taller, he is a lot bulkier, it makes sense. This is the only thing that sort of puts me off the idea of putting a Captain America head onto the quantum suit, is because you would essentially have a really short Captain America. But that being said, I think the look could still do well if you maybe posed him away from other things, but in terms of build and size, again, the ratio is pretty much on point with these two, but I am looking forward to getting the Endgame Captain America because I would really like to see him next to this figure. A rather interesting comparison that I actually wanted to do was the quantum suit next to the Ant-Man and Wasp Ant-Man, because obviously this is the same suit that Ant-Man does wear in Endgame. And seeing as the quantum suit is technically using Ant-Man technology, in a way it is just another Ant-Man suit, I wanted to see how they look together, and you can definitely see the similarities here. You can see how the quantum suit is almost an evolution of the Ant-Man suit, just designed towards a different function. The color schemes are very similar. They do stick to the same sort of color palette. The only difference here is the ratio. So where the Ant-Man suit has more red on it, the quantum suit has that light gray. The red, however, that you can see in sort of small sections on the quantum suit and the Ant-Man suit, they are pretty much the same, and they are almost an identical texture as well, which I really like. So it does show that they've very clearly taken Ant-Man's suit and they have adapted it into this new one, because there are actual sections that are identical. So the red section up by Tony's neck and on the back of his hands and everything, it is pretty much the same material as what you're seeing across Ant-Man's chest and shoulders. So that's a really nice detail. And then in the design as well, Ant-Man again, he has a very angular, high-tech, scientific-looking suit. That same design has followed through in the Tony Stark quantum suit. Obviously, Scott Lang is not in any way a super soldier or an Asgardian god, so he is more of a human height, which you can see because these two are pretty much the same height. You can see the shoulders line up, and I kind of wish I'd put the helmet on for this shot on the quantum suit, but again, you can tell the heights are pretty much identical between the two, and I think that is accurate. And for the final comparison, we have got the Endgame Thanos next to the quantum suit. Now, I am aware that Tony doesn't actually wear the suit when he's next to Thanos at any point in the film, but I thought it'd be an interesting comparison because at the end of the day, Thanos is a big guy. And one of the first things I'm actually noticing is just how much the outfits here contrast, because obviously the quantum suit, it is a much more matted, sort of less shiny color, other than obviously the silver sections and, maybe a slight sheen in the red, whereas Thanos is covered in this sort of glossy, shiny, reflective armor, so the two do contrast quite a bit. Personally, I don't think I will be posing them together because they clash a little bit too much for my liking. But still, I just thought it'd be interesting to show these two together because often the comparison we see is an Iron Man suit next to Thanos opposed to Tony Stark himself. And as we've seen from an earlier comparison, there is a considerable height difference between Tony and his actual suits. So there's that one. Now, just before I move on to the conclusion, I want to do a little bit of an experiment with this figure. So as we're all aware, multiple characters do wear this suit or various iterations of it. So what I'm going to do in a second is I'm just going to start putting different head sculpts onto the body to see how they look. I'm aware that most of these probably won't look right on the body in general because they're probably a taller or a shorter character, but I'm interested to see how many iterations there can be. So I'll shut up in a second and I will just let it fade through the photos, but pre-warning, these aren't just going to be characters from Endgame. I am going to put in a couple that got dusted from Infinity War because you know what? I'm actually curious to see how they look in the suit. So I'll shut up and I'll just let you enjoy that for a minute. To wrap this up then, I think I have to say my overall thoughts are I can understand why people are so on the fence about this figure because there are elements of it that are really, really great and there are some that are a little bit lacking. So in terms of the pros, the things that are really good, I would have to say the overall look of the figure itself, like if you just put it on your shelf and you just look at it, it is phenomenally lifelike. It really, really does look like it is a photo straight out of the film. It doesn't look like a 1/6 scale figure at all. And at the end of the day, I think that is the primary goal for Hot Toys when they make these things. It's realism. It's to make it look lifelike. You know, if it looks like a toy, you know, you've clearly missed on something. But this doesn't. This looks like a still from the film, brought to life, put on your shelf on a smaller scale. It's gorgeous. Everything about the suit looks real. Everything about the head sculpt is great. So if you are a collector who likes to just put things on your shelf and, you know, it's very much a display piece, then I say you have absolutely no worries about this suit and I think you would very much enjoy having it because this is one of the more lifelike ones that we've received. That being said, the articulation really does let this guy down. Now, I don't really know, I just feel like from the overall look of it, I was personally expecting a bit more articulation because it's in a jumpsuit. Often the jumpsuit figures, they aren't so hindered by their clothing, but this one actually is. The arms, as you saw earlier, the arms, the legs, they don't really move much, and I think even if you did, there is a risk of either permanently creasing or even tearing the material. So if you're a collector who enjoys dynamic poses and you like to leave them in that stance, might be worth looking in another direction if you're looking for a Tony Stark or an Iron Man or just something to represent Avengers Endgame. I don't think this would be the one for you. But if you're okay with putting it in a more simplistic pose, then who knows, maybe. Then things like the accessories, I do think this figure is a little bit lackluster. You know, I get it that realistically, in these suits, they didn't interact with too much, but I do think you could have, if this is going to be Tony Stark, you could have at least included the Infinity Stone that he went and retrieved, because that was the whole purpose of the suit. It was to go and get an Infinity suit, to get an Infinity Stone. So at least, you know, include that with it. Realistically, I know a lot of collectors out there, myself included, since receiving this, would like to have had the whole set, or at least to have had a few more from the Quantum suits so we could put them together. And I think Hot Toys have really missed out on something here, because had we received this suit with multiple head sculpts, so we could actually decide who was wearing the suit, you would have had collectors buying multiples of the same figure. And again, that would have been a massive selling point for them. Or if they had then released a female body variant, so we could have had a Black Widow or a Nebula. I know they even previewed War Machine in the Quantum Suit paint scheme. I would have really liked to have that, and especially now having this in hand, it makes me want those things even more. I just think Hot Toys, I wouldn't be upset if they did consider releasing a few more characters in the Quantum Suit, because, I don't know, this guy he feels a bit on his own, being the only Quantum Suit figure that there is. But if Hot Toys don't release it, I can imagine a lot of third-party companies or a lot of customizers are going to be out there doing the job for them. So in terms of that, for Tony Stark, yes, it looks great, but I want more. I want to see other Quantum Suits, and I want to see them alongside him to do some awesome lineup. But that being said, I do think for the price point of this guy, you're not getting ripped off in any way. This is far from one of the more expensive Hot Toys that we've received. And so when you stop and look at it from that perspective, you are getting your money's worth purely from the detail and the intricacies and the accuracy of the suit and figure itself. You are getting your money's worth. I just think if Hot Toys really want collectors to keep coming back, they need to start putting in the small thoughts and details with the accessories, such as, the Infinity Stone, or maybe including other head sculpts. Now, I know the big question with a lot of collectors when you buy a new figure is, do I like it? Will it be staying in my collection? Or have I received it? Am I not too fussed and will I probably sell it off soon? I'll be honest, originally I was thinking maybe I'd get this guy, I'd decide whether I liked him or not. If I didn't like him, maybe I would have sold him off. Having received him in hand, as much as I have, yes, I'm aware I have criticised that he doesn't come with much, but he is actually going to be staying on my shelf, and he is going absolutely nowhere, because I myself am a huge, huge fan of just the overall appearance of this figure. He adds a massive sort of variety to the shelf. A lot of Marvel characters do have quite dark colour schemes in their suits, and when I put him on the shelf, he stands out so much. And at the end of the day, this is an iconic look. This is the time travel suit from the Time Heist, So for me personally, I'm glad to now have this in the collection, and I can confirm he's not going anywhere. This is going to be staying in the Geek Bank for a very long time. So if I had to say, would I recommend this guy? The answer is yes, I would. In terms of realism and accuracy, I would 100% recommend this figure. If you are looking for a dynamic poser, articulation, loads of accessories, I think maybe this might not be the figure for you. But as a whole, I do think it's a very good addition to any collection, especially for adding a bit of variety and diversity to the display case. He is awesome. Now, I'm aware that me going on about how great this figure is and how much I like it is all well and good, but if I don't tell you where you can get him from, it's a little bit useless. So the answer to that is I got him from INLC Toys. I will link them down in the description below if you want to check them out. All I can say is they are brilliant, okay? I've dealt with a lot of distributors in the past. They haven't done the job. They've had a con somewhere. INLC Toys seem to be the first distributor I have found that really do answer questions. They tick all the boxes. Personally, they're where I'm going to be going for a very long time. Worldwide shipping, great prices, great communication as well. They are very, very friendly if you have any questions or anything like that. So be sure to check them out because not enough people know about them yet as they are just starting out. But I can really, really see them becoming something much bigger as time goes on. And I hope other distributors start to look to them for an example because they are smashing it. For now though, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really hope you've enjoyed the review and I hope it has helped to provide you with some insight into this new figure and helped you decide whether you think it's for you. And if you do know, feel free to comment down below, say what you think. If you've got any questions, write them down. I will respond to you, I promise. Or just, you can DM me on the Geekbank Instagram page. I'm almost always on there, and I will link that down in the description below. That's basically just where I post the more artistic pictures of the figures that I receive and other things in the Geekbank collection. So feel free to check that one out. And in the meantime, thanks for tuning in. Peace out, geeks.